is going on, everybody? What is going on? The Catch fam, my name is John Dawson, and in today's video, we will be going over 5 must-start running backs moving into Week 5 of the 2023 fantasy football season. If you guys are new to the channel, this is all we do here all year round: free fantasy football content, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. So if you guys are into that, be sure to subscribe on the way in. But more importantly, please get in the comment section down below anything that you guys need: starts, sits, trades, roster reviews, whatever it may be. Let me know and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. But without further ado, let's hop into today's video. All right, so for the purpose of these videos, we don't typically go over like no-brainer must-start players like Christian McCaffrey or Bijan Robinson that are going to be in your starting lineups no matter what. But when it comes to a guy like David Montgomery, where you drafted him in a lot of your guys' leagues out there, he has ended up as a potential bench player who you probably are starting no matter what. But I just want to give you guys full confidence in David Montgomery, who's currently the RB7 in fantasy football with missing week 3. He has scored 12 or more fantasy points in every game this year that he's played in so far, coming off of a 34.1 fantasy performance against Green Bay with 3 total touchdowns. Now he gets the Carolina Panthers defense, which, you know, ultimately this Panthers defense has played pretty good against the pass, but they're awful against the run. They're the 29th ranked team against the run in the league, a very bad team in the bottom 5 against the run. They've been getting absolutely lit up by opposing running backs so far this season. So David Montgomery, if you have some depth at running back, if he's sitting on your bench, don't let him sit on your bench. He should be in your starting lineups moving into Week 5. All right, another player who you're probably looking at and saying, yeah, John, I'm starting DeAndre Swift no matter what. He's the RB9 in fantasy. He's had 14 or more fantasy points in his last 3 games. But once again, where you drafted DeAndre Swift in a lot of leagues, he could be sitting on your bench just due to depth. And same with David Montgomery. You should have full confidence in DeAndre Swift going into the week. This is a good enough matchup against the Rams, who are better than the Panthers, a team we just talked about as the 14th ranked team in the league. But man, DeAndre Swift has just been on such a roll. He's been consistent, and I don't see that dying down anytime soon. The Eagles are going to utilize him. This is going to be a game, in my opinion, that the over is probably going to hit. I think both of these secondaries are going to be pretty faulty in this game. There should be plenty of red zone opportunities for both teams. So, you know, I'm not as confident in Kyron Williams for the Rams, for example, because the Eagles are the best team in the league against opposing running backs in fantasy. But man, if you own DeAndre Swift in this matchup, I still like him going into the week. Don't do anything smart here. Don't put him on your bench. He should be a starter moving into Week 5. Next up, we've got Gus the Bus, the man himself. Hasn't really had a great fantasy season. You know, I mean, obviously the Ravens' backfield's always in turmoil, but 12 points in Week 2 against Cincinnati. Outside of that, no more than 6.9 fantasy points in full PPR so far this year. But this week he gets the Pittsburgh Steelers, and man, they have been abysmal against the run, coming in at 27th against the running back position in fantasy football. You know, this is one of those games, the Ravens on the road, maybe it could be a trap game, but let's just face it, Pittsburgh's defense, outside of that pass rush, has been awful this year against the running back and the wide receiver position. So maybe in the wide receiver must-start video, you might hear about a wide receiver on the Ravens, but nonetheless, I'm pretty confident in Gus Edwards going into the week. He is the RB1 when we look at the split, when we look at the volume overall. And I mean, he hasn't played that bad the last 2 weeks. 4.6 yards per carry in week 3, 51 yards on the ground, 3.2 yards per carry, and 2 receptions with 48 rushing yards in week 4. He just hasn't found the end zone. So this might be a good pattern. He's due for a touchdown. I think he's a solid play, especially if you're struggling at the running back position. It's a good matchup here. The volume has been good the past couple of weeks. Gus Edwards is a solid start moving into Week 5. All right, next I want to talk about Joe Mixon, who, I mean, maybe for some of your guys' leagues is a must start every week just due to where you drafted him. But man, he's a RB20 right now in fantasy. This offense is kind of in shambles. Joe Burrow still dealing with the calf injury. T. Higgins is hurt. I mean, we know the stories here, right? Joe Mixon, no more than 14 fantasy points this season. 10 points, 13.5, 14, 8.6. That's how the first 4 weeks have looked for him. So, coming off of his worst performance yet against a good Tennessee Titans run defense, I don't want to sneeze at the Arizona Cardinals defense. They've showed up this year. They do look pretty good, but they don't look good against the run. They are the third worst team in the entire league from a fantasy perspective against the running back position. So Joe Mixon in a good spot here. Joe Burrow, the calf injury is probably going to affect his ability to throw the football in this game. I don't know. I don't know what form of Joe Burrow we're going to get at this point at any given week, but that could be good for Joe Mixon. The Bengals could rely on the run game in this matchup. And even if they don't, it's just a great matchup for Joe Mixon. So if the Bengals make a couple of red zone trips in this game, which I think they're going to be able to do so, Mixon will get the rock, okay? So I like Mixon. I think he has a high ceiling this week, and he has a pretty safe floor as well. Like I said, week 4, a tough matchup against the Titans. In every other game this week, he has had at least 10 or more fantasy points. The ceiling just hasn't quite been there. This is a good game for Mixon to get going before he faces another bad run defense in week 6 and the Seattle Seahawks before the Bengals get a bye week in week 7 that they desperately need. So Joe Mixon is a safe play this week. I think he could potentially see his best ceiling so far as we approach week 5. All right, last but not least, we're going to talk about a New York Jets player. Yep, I'm going with Bree Hall against the Denver Broncos. I don't know if you guys have been watching football this year, but man, the Broncos, they're not good defensively. Maybe they have some offensive firepower, but it just doesn't matter because this defense is like historically bad, guys. They are the worst team in the league against opposing running backs from a fantasy perspective, okay? They're awful. Bree Hall, from the reports we've gotten, is good to go, right? He's actually, according to reports, no limitations whatsoever. He's going to be unleashed at this point in the season. Let's hope so. He's been extremely inconsistent. 10 attempts in week 1, then 4 in week 2, then 12 in week 3, then 6 in week 4. At least 2 targets each game. Come on. There's still some hesitation around this offense. I totally get it. So I know Bree Hall is on a lot of benches out there, but man, it still feels a little risky, but I really think Bree Hall could have a huge game against the Broncos. I don't think Cook is going to get involved enough in this game that's going to affect Hall's outcome. Zach Wilson looked competent last week. This Broncos unit is bad against every position offensively. This defense is just awful, but man, they are especially bad against the run. I just love Bree Hall's opportunity here. This could be a point in the season where we see the Jets start to turn a new leaf. Let's hope so. I really hope they can piece this together because I still have some belief in Bree Hall and Garrett Wilson, so we'll see what happens. But man, Bree Hall, just due to the matchup purely, is a player you need to consider. A lot of injuries to running back so far this year. A lot of turmoil with the running back position. If you're in a tough spot and you own Bree Hall, he should be in your starting lineup against an awful Broncos defense moving into week 5. That'll do it for today's video. If you guys did enjoy the content today or find it helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. This is all we do here all year round. Free fantasy football content, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. But more importantly, guys, please get in the comment section down below. Anything that you guys need, start sits, trades, waivers, roster reviews, injury help, whatever it is, let me know and I'll get back to you guys as soon as I possibly can. And with that, I will say, thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch.